Hey, this is Seth at Music Teachers Muse. Tune in Fridays PST at midnight for new episodes. See you there. Hey, welcome back to Music Teachers Muse, where we're already into season 4. We're going to be talking about everything I could think of that was pertinent to the craft and the art of teaching, one-on-one and sometimes group music lessons, as we've been doing for the previous 3 seasons. So let's jump into today's topic. Should you further your music education to get better teaching jobs and earn more money? So most people would say, well, yes, why wouldn't you? However, there's a few reasons why you may not want to do that. So I just came up with the most pertinent reasons I could think of that most people would ask themselves. So let's jump into this. So the pros, number one, of course, you're going to earn more money. Any place that you apply to that sees you have a higher degree of education is going to see, oh, this person went and got a bachelor's or a master's degree, or even in my case, an associate's degree, because there was a lot of even independent mom and pop stores before I left Indiana that wouldn't hire me because I didn't have an actual music education besides having taken private lessons. I was an accomplished player, but they wanted somebody who could read music and knew theory, and I admittedly didn't have very much of a knowledge of either. I mean, I was your average bar band guitarist. So that definitely helped me, and it's made it to where most of the places I've been hired into have taken that into consideration, and it looks really good on a resume. The nice thing about higher education is that, pro number 2, you can teach at higher levels of education. So, like for instance, with my associate's degree, I can only get hired at places like Guitar Center and mom and pop stores. To teach at a collegiate level, you have to have a master's. So that is absolute concrete truth. You can't get in and be a college professor if you have a bachelor's degree. It just doesn't happen. So if you want to get to that point, you have to go that route. The cons are the student loan debt. Is it worth it for you to go into the amount of debt you already have? For myself, it hasn't been worth it at all, because for me to further the education that I have to go back to MI. It's a performance-based school, so a lot of employers don't look at that as something like they would a music education degree or a performance degree in like jazz or classical guitar, because those are the two areas of guitar that you can actually get a bachelor's or a master's or even a doctorate. Like if you go to USC, they have a doctorate degree in guitar. My one teacher, Steve Matheson from MI, what's up, man? He had a doctorate from USC in guitar. So those are your potential options. Like for me to go back to MI, which I don't even know what their status is. I just talked to one of my teachers recently that is still teaching for them, but since it's COVID times and it's all online, they're struggling to keep their head above water. But even if I chose to go back and get my bachelor's degree, that'd be another probably at least $50,000 of student loan debt or more. And they have had a master's degree in performance for a while now, but the amount of expense is astronomically just stupid. And then also, if I wanted to get a bachelor's or a master's, I'd have to go to somewhere else to start over. If I wanted a performance degree in jazz or classical, or just an education degree, because you can't get your credits from MI transferred anywhere else. They aren't real nice to tell you that before you sign up and sign your life away for a fuck ton of money. Is what it is. I'm not sad that I went there. It was the best decision I ever made, but those are things you want to know. Next thing you want to consider on the cons is that it doesn't necessarily pay better or much better than what you're already potentially making. So since we're in times of COVID, fuck COVID, by the way. But it's been almost a year of this, so I'm sure anybody watching has said that more than a couple of times. It's literally, I've been applying for jobs, and I'm still doing just fine. I've got my own private students, and I'm still a Guitar Center employee, but I have not been able to rely on them for income because I have one student, because nobody wants to sign up because they're sick of shit being online. Big surprise. But so many of these places that I've been applying to require a bachelor's degree, which I don't have. But they're not paying that much more than what I was making at Guitar Center. I think my highest pay at Guitar Center was almost $26.50 an hour, and that's if I taught for the full hour, and that's a whole other explanation of which we should do an episode on as to how you get paid if you get hired into that particular company as a teacher. But some of these places, they pay $18 an hour for a bachelor's degree, or 25, or maybe 30. And most people think, oh, $30 an hour, that's great. And it is actually really good money. But that's if you're working full-time 40 hours a week. This is where work's never guaranteed. And you might work, and a lot of them are between 1 and 10 hours a week. That's what they're advertising for how much they're going to hire you. So think about that. It's really not that great. And for the amount of debt you're going to incur to get a bachelor's degree, it's really not worth it. Even if it's a $10 an hour pay increase, think about that. Lord knows how much a month student loan payment you're going to have to make to get that increase of pay. To me, it's not been worth it at all. And that's the second biggest con. At most locations, also the third con, or at least I don't know if it's necessarily a con, but it's definitely a concern, because I think the bachelor's thing just weeds out those that don't take it as seriously, because I'm sure everybody and their brother who can teach guitar or who has probably applied to these places, especially since nobody's been able to gig for so long because of COVID. So the thing is, though, that regardless of your education, most of these places, you're going to be teaching primarily kids who don't care about learning theory. They don't want to learn to read music. It's the same thing I've been preaching on this channel forever. Make it fun, give them what they want. And you're going to be teaching kids Star Wars theme on one string. You're going to teach them one finger chords and all this other stuff that you absolutely do not need a bachelor's degree to accomplish. You need to be good at what you do. You need to be good with people. You need to be able to tolerate kids and have a lot of patience. And you have to have a good personality. And you have to know your shit as far as your craft and your art. But if you're any kind of a pro, you do. So that's what makes it a big detriment as to, why do I need a bachelor's degree exactly? Now, some of these places, it will say that's preferred, or actually a lot of them do. And they'll also say that a bachelor's is required or the equivalent of. So I've been teaching for 30 years this year. First as a martial arts teacher, for the last 19 as a music teacher. So I have more than the equivalent of a bachelor's degree, because experience really should matter more than education. Education just looks official. They want you to be presentable to whoever their clients are. This individual went to this institution and got this degree and received these awards, and it makes the place look good. So don't completely disagree with the education thing, but I also can't completely agree with it either, because it gets a little ridiculous for the reasons I just stated. So the next thing you might want to do is, you should do, is there's some points to ponder about this. The things you need to consider are, one, are you making enough money right now to cover all your bills and expenses? Because if you're not, that might be a good reason to go back to school and get a higher degree of education. My first teacher, Scott, is actually going to getting his, I think it's his doctorate in music theory. He was at a point where his performance career wasn't going where he wanted, and he needed to make consistent money to help feed his family, because he had 3 kids at home and he's married, still is. But so he's been furthering his education since then. He's got several degrees now. He's got a master's, but he's going for his doctorate. What are your expenses right now? Like anybody would, do you have a family to support? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have this, that, or the other? What is what you're making now not meeting the needs of? Financial stability part of it is definitely a thing. Meaning a real job means it's a set schedule. You're going to be there so many days a week. You're going to have benefits, and it's going to be, it's income you can rely on for the most part, which with what we do as independent teachers, working for mom and pop stores and doing things on our own, that's never guaranteed. So those are definite reasons to consider, especially if you've got a family. I mean, you need benefits, you need health insurance, you need vacation time and 401k and all that sort of stuff, because being an independent contractor comes with none of that. The thing you might want to seriously consider is that as big as YouTube is and Patreon and online presence is, before you decide you're going to further your education and spend a literal mega metric fuck ton of money, the debt and everything else, is do your best, which I admit I have not done yet, because I was working so steadily at a store and with my independent private students before COVID. I didn't have to think about it or consider it. But build up your online presence, get your YouTube channel going, and get a Patreon page started, and just see what kind of business you can drum up on your own, and get your own private clients that way. Because literally, you could actually make a living doing that with the same degree of knowledge that you have now, without incurring any more debt and making things way harder on yourself. So let's recap on all the parameters of why you may want to or may not want to further your music education. So number one, make more money. Earning potential, it carries more weight with it. Your employer is going to be more impressed by that, in every case, if not every almost every case, if not every case. You have more power to choose where you might potentially work. The cons, the debt, discrepancy of it doesn't necessarily pay any more than you make now, or if it does, it might be $10 an hour more, but literally it's not that big a difference. And even if it is, even $10 an hour is a big jump in pay, but weigh the debt that you have to come up with every month to be able to, get that. So literally that's a big con right there, because even if you make $15 an hour more than you were, that few $100 a month you got to pay to the bank or whoever you get the loan from, that's a lot of money. So think about that. Like my private clients, they pay me $60 an hour. I've never made that working for anybody else. The most I've made, which is not something to shake a stick at, is 40, but that means that they only give you part of what the client is charged, because they have to make money too. So you always get less when you're working for somebody else. Points to ponder: does your current income cover all your expenses right now? Do you have a family to feed, whatever bills you have, et cetera, et cetera? Do you want to teach at a higher level, like a more well-known independent music school? But especially at the collegiate level, you have to have a master's. And even if you have that, you're going to have to secure a full-time position to get the benefits that you already don't have if you're an independent music teacher as well. So thanks for tuning in and watching. Please hit the bell for new videos. Subscribe, like, share. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Check out our sponsors in the description below. And we will see you next week.